Pastor Ezra Jin was released from Chinese custody in early July, but 8 other Christians from Zion Church remain incarcerated, not to mention Catholic publisher Jimmy Lai. And why has the Vatican forgotten a faithful Chinese bishop? Director of the Center for Religious Freedom, Shea, and daughter of Pastor Jin, Grace Jin Drexel, are here. The world over starts now.
Now, Raymond Arroyo.
A warm welcome to all of you joining us in the United States and the world over as we celebrate our 30th year. We have a great show for you this evening. If you'd like to comment, send me an X post. I'm at Raymond Arroyo and at Arroyo Grande Show on YouTube. Pastor Ezra Jin, a Protestant pastor, was released from prison by Chinese officials after an intervention from President Donald Trump. But what of the others who remain in prison for their faith in China? And why has the Vatican said nothing about a deceased faithful Catholic bishop? Here to discuss it all, Director of the Center for Religious Freedom at the Hudson Institute, Shea, and human rights advocate and daughter of Pastor Jin, Grace Jin Drexel. Thank you both for being here. On the 4th of July, Pastor Jin was released from his cell in China, flown to Los Angeles. His release was called unprecedented by U.S. officials. He'd been held for 266 days on specious and evolving charges. Nina, how rare is it for Beijing to simply release a pastor like Pastor Jin?
It rarely happens, Raymond. It's he calls it a miracle, but it's usually happens with there's a prisoner exchange or when the prisoner is very ill and the CCP doesn't want martyrs, so they don't want them to die in prison, so they get out, like Liu Xiaobo, who was a Nobel Peace Prize winner, died within weeks of getting medical parole after being in a Chinese prison. So it's very unusual, and it shows that the Chinese really do want to create some kind of goodwill with Americans and with President Trump. So there's some leverage there.
Grace, you were there in Los Angeles when your dad landed. You said you almost didn't recognize him because of, the weight loss and how he'd aged in detention. Tell us about that reunion, and how is your father doing now, a month later?
Yes, thank you so much. And just like Nina said, I really felt like it was a miracle, and we were not expecting this to happen at all. Even until I saw my father, I didn't think that it was going to be real. And in fact, like you said, when I first saw him, I didn't even recognize him at first. So the first thing that went in my mind was, I knew it. They brought the wrong guy to me. And again, it was a couple of seconds later when I recognized like that he was my father, and he was significantly, he had lost significant amount of weight, just like many prisoners inside China. And he said that he was just had a difficult time inside prison as well, and part of it, he was also just so in shock as well that he didn't know what was happening around him. Now it's been just slightly over a month since he's been back to the U.S. with his family, but he hasn't stopped a single moment, especially as there are still 8 people detained inside China from our church. I think my father's heart is really heavy with and with sadness for them as well. So he is going around the country trying to help raise awareness at churches, at different events and such, for the other 8, and hoping that they will soon also feel the freedom that my father is currently enjoying.
Yeah. And Nina, there's also Jimmy Lai, who we've reported on for so long here, the Catholic publisher and pro-democracy advocate. He spent nearly 5 years in solitary confinement, now serving a 20-year sentence. He's been denied Holy Communion in a country that says it respects religious freedom. President Trump raised Jimmy's case directly with Xi Jinping at their May summit. Now, Xi reportedly said it would be tough to secure Jimmy's release. The two leaders will meet again in September, Nina, in Washington. What should the president be asking for this time? And why would it be tough for the supreme ruler of China to release anybody?
President Trump should definitely raise Jimmy Lai's case again, insist that he be released from prison. He was unjustly tried. For the 8 other pastors from Zion Church as well. Jimmy Lai's case is no hardship for, it's not hard for Xi Jinping to get him released. Xi Jinping was put on the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party. Of course, he's Secretary General of it now. But when he was on the Central Committee, he created a mechanism to put Hong Kong directly in, strictly controlled, directly under the chain of command of the Communist Party, reporting directly to him, to the Secretary General. So all he has to do really is snap his fingers, and he would be released. This is something that he has total control over. It is not tough. It's a myth. It's a fiction, a legal fiction that he wants to create, that Hong Kong retains independence, that it has an independent judiciary, that it has its separate system that it had until 2020, and by law has under an international treaty with the UK for many more years. So that is nonsense. And President Trump should stand his ground. It's not too tough for Trump to ask for that or for Xi to grant it. And I was really taken, Raymond, also when I had the joy and honor of meeting Pastor Jin. And he told us at the time that when they took him out of his prison cell, they didn't tell him where he was going or that he was going to be freed. And his immediate thought was that he's going to be taken into secret detention. And that is a very rational thought, because so many people are, including Catholic bishops.
Pastor Jin was one of 28 Zion Church leaders swept up in that October 2025 raid by the CCP. It was the largest crackdown on the house church network since 2018. 9 were released on bail in June. 8, as you mentioned earlier, Grace, are still in custody. 5 now facing formal fraud charges. 2 others on charges of, quote, illegal business operations. Nina, what happens to those 8 now that the world's attention has moved on? And Grace, then I want you to tell me how your dad and you were trying to raise awareness for them.
Well, first of all, let's acknowledge that those charges are based on them giving sermons without government approval. And that's their violation was to violate the CCP's code to monopolize thought and ideas and ideology, and that includes religion. And so those are trumped up charges. Those are specious charges, as you said, and they will be convicted. I mean, because you don't get off in the Chinese system. There is no fairness or due process. It's a political charge at its heart. And they are facing years in prison, and they have no real recourse except for international attention and pressure, and this desire to please the United States, not to cause trouble. And actually, you know, there were Christians around the world in Brazil and Nigeria and other places that were raising Pastor Jin's case. They had heard about it. And that's also a consideration for Xi Jinping, because he wants his Belt and Road project and his Huawei communications and cell phones to be sold in these countries. And that's important to him, that he stay on the good side of the Christian communities there.
Grace, I know you've been trying to raise awareness about these 8 members of your dad's church who are still incarcerated. While you're fighting publicly for your father's release, you and your husband became targets yourselves. I mean, your mother's tires were slashed. Tell us what happened, and the phone calls you received, and what all of that means to you.
Yes, thank you so much. as you said, we're really trying to raise the awareness of the other 8. They are currently still detained and charged with both fraud and or illegal business operation, just because of their sermons that they are preaching and the tithe that is biblical, that the church has done it for the last 2,000 years. And in the church in China, they are using the law as a weapon to persecute these Christians. And it's not just Zion Church and my family. Honestly, now there are hundreds of pastors that are detained using these same similar charges. And this has been a very recent type of an event to incarcerate these pastors. So as much as Zion Church is now being in the spotlight, we hope that we will shed light into all the big things that are happening generally inside China as well. As we are raising this awareness, like you said, my family, we are in America and we feel this freedom to speak out for those who don't have this freedom to speak out. Like I mentioned, there are hundreds of pastors that are detained inside China, including Catholic bishops and such, and including Jimmy Lai's family, except Jimmy Lai as well in Hong Kong. But with that, I have felt unsafe in Washington D.C. area when I am meeting with people in D.C., as well as my mother has been harassed and kind of repeatedly asked to go back to China to face charges against her. Apparently, there are some sort of a kind of force, like harassing her to come back to China, which is a very common tactic, this type of transnational repression tactic that many human rights activists have also faced from China.
So Nina, this is really China reaching way beyond its borders to pressure former Chinese nationals here in the United States.
That's correct. And they're being attacked for religion and for free speech. So this is really infringing on First Amendment freedoms of people in America and Americans. And I'm hearing it from, Raymond, from every religious group from China, whether it's Falun Gong or the Tibetan Buddhists or the Uyghur Muslims. They're all Christians. They're all reporting that they're being harassed, intimidated, bullied, and worse, with vandalism and even with physical assaults. There are bomb threats that are being called in for the Shenyun performances, which is a Falun Gong dance company, so that they're canceled, so that the performances are canceled. That also is a violation of every American who wants to view that show, First Amendment freedoms. We need a policy to better deal with this. Right now it's being handled by the FBI and the Justice Department case by case. We need to really have an all-of-government approach to this threat to our own freedoms on American soil, and that's why we should care about it.
I wanted to add one thing with Nina's point too, that it is really China reaching out to the U.S., especially even inside churches. We see a lot of fear of speaking out, even to stand with those that are detained. And we feel like part of that is that they also, many of the Chinese churches and diaspora Chinese churches, they also have family members inside China. And so again, one of the ways that China is using so many people as leverage and hostage, and so that they cannot speak out freely, even pray for the fellow Christians inside China.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, and Nina, I want to connect this to what we're seeing from the Vatican. The Vatican has been curiously silent in the face of China willy-nilly appointing bishops under this crazy secret pact that Pope Francis signed back in 2018 that remains in effect, that basically allows Pope Xi to appoint any bishop he wants, and then the Pope in Rome rubber stamps it. That's what's effectively what's been happening here. It's supposed to be some sort of consultation. That's never really happened. But whatever the case, there is this troubling silence from the Vatican. Last October, Bishop Julius Gia, who was 91, He had spent 15 years in prison for his loyalty to Rome, an underground Catholic bishop, tortured so badly in custody he suffered bone spurs for the rest of his life, and he refused to join the state-run Patriotic Association. In the months since October, since he died, the Vatican has approved at least 2 other CCP-appointed bishops. What does it mean that a man like Bishop Xi dies unrecognized by his own government while Rome keeps approving Beijing's picks? And where is Rome on all this?
Well, yes, it was very disappointing because 2 of the bishops that the Pope Leo has now approved were actually done without his consultation or awareness. And we know that because they were done during when the papal see was vacant. That's when they were appointed by the CCP. And one of them was a priest. He was not a bishop. And so he had never been approved by Rome and he as a bishop. And he was elected a bishop by the communist devised system. So what this means is that there is, I think, confusion in Rome about the importance of praying and speaking out for these persecuted. You know, Pope Leo just wrote a letter this week, Raymond, to the Knights of Columbus, congratulating them for their help to the persecuted. But even the Knights of Columbus have not spoken out about China's persecuted because in a hierarchical church, it sort of flows out from the leadership of the Pope. We need the Pope to speak out, to understand what is happening, to be able to pray for these people who, like you said, are being tortured and who are unfairly imprisoned for years and decades even. You know, we have bishops, Catholic bishops like Bishop Su have disappeared. Bishop Xing of Shanghai has disappeared. We don't know where he is. Other bishops are under house arrest, like Bishop Ma, Bishop Tui Tai, yes. And so on. And it just seems like it's the moral platform of the Vatican is very powerful. The Chinese know that. They're afraid of it. And that's what they should be doing.
Why do you think then, Nina? I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, that bishop, that 91-year-old bishop that we talked about, this very brave underground bishop who refused to sign on to the Chinese fake church, the Patriotic Association, there has been no recognition from Rome of his death or marking of his death, correct?
No recognition in English, anyhow. There may have been something in Chinese, but it's very sad because, you know, you see these people are beloved by their own flock who know them. It hides, it covers up the real character of this regime, not to talk about this. You know, Pastor Jin was also imprisoned for refusing to register. He resisted registration for his church with the Protestant equivalent of this Patriotic Association. And what is going on is a crackdown on Christians more broadly in China that no one is talking about, very little is known about it. And but there are reports that hundreds were imprisoned or arrested around Christmas time, last Christmas, and that there are thousands have been arrested in the last 10 years or so, maybe tens of thousands.
Well, Nina, look, I'm reading a biography on St. Paul, and when you hear these stories of bishops being disappeared, the bishops in solitary confinement that you mentioned a moment ago, it does recall the persecution of the early church. But these leaders always underestimate the power of the faith among the faithful. My question is, what message does this silence send to the faithful underground Catholics who for years have been holding firm in the face of this persecution when Rome capitulates or seems to be working in concert with the Chinese authorities? What's the message? I'll ask both of you that.
I think the message is that the church doesn't care about them or disapproves of their faith, of their loyalty to the Pope. And it's a very confusing time. We see the boom of churches in the Christian underground, the Protestant underground, and nothing equivalent to that is going on in the Catholic Church in China. We know how to do underground. The Catholic Church has done underground church building, deep underground, where their names are not known in Ukraine under the Soviet period, in the Arabian Peninsula, in Saudi Arabia. So it's not unknown to the Catholic Church, but we have the Pope Francis has basically, he disparaged joining the underground and disparaged the leaders on the underground. The papal nuncio, the papal envoy to Hong Kong, even called Cardinal Zen stubborn for not encouraging and criticizing the patriotic church.
No, something is amiss. Grace, you've said your family doesn't measure this fight for religious freedom and the freedom of all the faithful in China by results, but by faithfulness. If your father could speak directly to our audience tonight, what would he want free people in America to know? Not only about his incarceration, but what he left behind in China.
Yes, thank you so much. For my father, he became a Christian after the 1989 Tiananmen Square protest and subsequent massacre. And he knows very clearly what this government is capable or wants to do. And at the time when he lost he lost faith in his government, that's when he found Christ and found hope in our Lord, our Savior. And only through being a Christian was he able to hope again, even for his country, for China, and even to love again his country and the people. And I think many people understand what the consequence of faith is in China. And they are willing to put up their lives on the line in some ways for their faith, just like you mentioned the early apostles in the Bible. And we know that what it means to pick up the cross. It is so real to us. Actually, it is helpful, but it is helpful for the universal global church to come together and to support us and to pray for us and to tell us that they are with us and that our suffering is being acknowledged and the global church comes with alongside our suffering. And I think that is extremely important and powerful. And I hope and pray that for our leaders as well, for the part of the reason why we're still advocating so loudly is to remind even those that are in detention that they are not being forgotten and that we are walking alongside them and we are being a public witness to them again, just like the book of Acts is just a collection of this witness. And we hope that we are also witnessing and writing a public witness of what's happening inside the church inside China.
Yeah. Nina, before we run out of time, on July 19th, Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega marked the anniversary of the Sandinista Revolution by announcing the end of elections in Nicaragua, with family succession reportedly being arranged for his wife and a co-president. Ortega's already expelled Catholic clergy. He's been banned bringing Bibles into the country. What will the persecution of Christians in Nicaragua look like now, Nina? Might it lessen?
No, I don't think it's going to lessen, Raymond, because he's following the communist model, and he has tried to undermine the church since, for decades now, during the first Sandinista regime where he was president. And it's the worst place in the hemisphere. I think it's the treatment of the church, the purging of the church, the throwing out of the orders, and it's as bad or worse as Cuba, worse than Cuba at this point, imprisoning bishop and so forth. It's really tragic. That also deserves more attention. The popes have always emphasized unity. Unity within the church, but we're not doing a very good job in the Catholic Church of being unified with the suffering churches around the world, whether it's in Nicaragua or Cuba or in China. and or Nigeria, for that matter.
Right, that's what I wanted to ask you about before we run out of time, because this is, again, we're the only ones talking about this in a consistent way, Nina, which is very troubling. And look, I know it's lost me some friendships in Rome. I frankly don't care. My job is to continue to be truly. They talk about wanting to walk and accompany people in the church. This is what accompaniment looks like. And sometimes it's ugly and sad. And we have to bring that and walk with those brothers and sisters, or give this up and let's go golf on Sunday. But in Nigeria, on July 26th, suspected Fulani militants massacred at least 30 Christians, 21 of them Catholic, in a small village in Kaduna State, including 11 children. Just days earlier, a Catholic priest was stabbed to death in an adjacent state. Nigeria remains, by every measure, Nina, the deadliest place on earth. Why is Washington and other governments, including the Vatican, why are they still refusing to acknowledge what's happening there?
Well, they acknowledge that the terror groups in the north, like ISIS, the Islamic State, and Boko Haram are massacring and taking hostage, but not the Fulani jihadis. They're running wild in the Middle Belt area, killing Christians, targeting Christians. They're going out of their way to find Christians, including seminarians taken from Mass, as happened last week, Sunday Mass, last Sunday, and taken hostage. And where they're brutalized. If they survive, it's for thousands and thousands of dollars, which is destroying the church there. And entire villages, Christian villages, are emptied out, and the people cannot go back home because they will be terrorized and attacked again. So it's a mystery to me why there isn't more attention. I think there's the Fulani are somehow protected from criticism. It's considered that the Christians, there's a feeling among the media and some even in our government, I'm afraid, who think that the Christians who get their faith from Western missionaries, either in past centuries or currently, are the oppressors. They're the real oppressors, and that eternally. And that these Fulani herders who are radicalized, not all of them, but there are a number of militia bands that are going around doing this mayhem. They are radicalized. They're doing it for religious reasons. They're Islamists, they're jihadis, they're yelling Allahu Akbar as they kill. And it's considered, somehow incorrect to defend Christians.
Yeah, well, it's got to be raised. I know Trump did some bombing raids of Boko Haram, but that was not in the Middle Belt. So, I think we just need a holistic understanding and focus on Christian persecution and religious persecution around the world, and to continue raising it up. And too often we talk about unity, but you're right, Nina. This is what unity looks like, focusing on our brothers and sisters who continue to suffer, die, and bleed for their faith. Grace, our prayers are with you and your family as your dad reintegrates, and I know his voice continues to ring strongly in churches. I'm glad he's back among us. You can find Nina Shea's reporting on the persecution of Christians worldwide at hudson.org. Thank you both.
Thank you, Raymond.
Over on the Arroyo Grande podcast, I sat down with Kelsey Grammer for a moving conversation, not only about the origins of his iconic characters, but about the personal suffering and faith that has sustained him. I was struck by the tragedies that you carried with you. Obsessive wives, breaking glass over your head, beating you quite literally.
I had some fun, yeah.
How do you find humor, though, on the other side of that?
Well, if you don't have humor, you're just going to drift into dismay. I mean, I'm an optimist. I was born an optimist. I do think there are, characteristics we're born with. That was one of mine. I mean, I said, we're going to get through this. One foot in front of the other. We're going to soldier on. Some people don't soldier on. I get that. And I feel sorry for them, actually, because, I do have faith, and it's been challenged. And I've shouted at God in my time and said, I've had it with you. I'm done. And then, of course, he wasn't done with me. So it's okay.
The full Arroyo Grande episode featuring Kelsey Grammer is on YouTube at Arroyo Grande Show, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can go to Spotify, Apple, iHeart. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an Arroyo Grande Show episode, and it's free. And don't miss this week's Prayerful Posse. We discuss the battle over the traditional Latin Mass and where it stands now. Go to Arroyo Grande Show, wherever you get your podcasts. This week, we lost a true Hollywood legend and a good soul. Robert Duvall passed away on February 15th at his home in Middleburg, Virginia. He was 95. Since his breakout role as Boo Radley in the 1962 classic To Kill a Mockingbird, he inhabited an array of unforgettable characters. The original Frank Burns in MASH, of course, Tom Hagen in The Godfather, Lieutenant Colonel Bill Kilgore in Apocalypse Now.
You want to wait here for 6 hours?
And his Oscar-winning turn as Mac Sledge in 1983's Tender Mercies. He was also nominated for an Emmy for his work as the wise old Texas Ranger Gus McCrae in Lonesome Dove, a role he called American Shakespeare. In the late 1990s, he wrote and directed and produced and starred in a very personal film, I think one of his finest, The Apostle. It was filled with themes of forgiveness and redemption and faith that were really characteristic of so much of his best work. I sat down with him at his home a number of years ago, and we talked about his then latest film, Get Low, another film rooted in faith, his process as an actor, and that seamlessly endless list of iconic roles. Here's Robert Duvall.
And I want to be there.
You will be, I guarantee you.
I want to be there now.
You want to be at your funeral party alive?
Yes, sir.
But you can't have a funeral if you're not, you know, deceased.
Hold on now. It's a detail. We can look at it.
Pretty big detail.
You want to have a funeral party while you're alive so you can go.
Yes or no?
Yes. Buddy, get some paper. We need to make a list of who Mr. Bush wants to invite.
Now sit down there. I want everybody to come who's got a story to tell about me.
Let's talk for a moment about this film and this character. Felix Bush strikes me as a lot like Boo Radley.
No, not at all.
Well,
Not at all.
But
everybody
they're
says
hermits.
that. Not even close.
Okay, what's the
To
difference?
me, not even close. The difference being, this guy could have been a lawyer, a teacher. He could have been a world traveler. He could have been, you know, whatever. He could have been many things, but he chose to be a recluse. But
He's a self-exiled
yeah,
recluse.
self. Boo Radley was a little off, you know.
But there is a tenderness beneath the expectation that the world has of these people that I think is in common.
Yeah.
That there's much more beneath the surface than the world sees
Yeah, exactly.
in both of these men.
Well, and also, this is like a Horton Foote movie, and he didn't live long enough to see it. I wanted him to see it, but he died right before we started it.
Yeah.
No, during the scene I'm giving the speech.
In front of everybody at the end.
The first day when I did it for them, my wife's off camera. She gets a message that Horton Foote just passed away. During the death scene, she got goose pimples. It was like it was full circle for To Kill a Mockingbird, all the things I did with Horton until that point.
Absolutely.
Dealing with death, he was like he was there.
You have such a long relationship with him.
Yeah.
And every project, I would argue, the ones that you've poured your heart and soul in and have been directly involved in, are Horton Foote-esque in the sense that
This was very much that way.
you have people who the world often forgets or doesn't want to think about, and yet they're the depth of their lives, the eternal realities that they deal with every day in small ways,
Right.
is apparent.
Exactly.
Do you sense that? Do you have a sense of that? That
You
you're
mean-
drawn to that material?
Yeah, I'm drawn to many things. I played Stalin.
Yeah, well, he wasn't exactly a tender
I played Adolf
character.
Eichmann. But still, I played different parts and military guys, but the certain parts do have that strain of humanity throughout. That's very appealing as a performer and very appealing to a certain portion of the public.
Would you say that you're drawn to Southern stories more than others?
Could be. I mean, I was attached to this, and then it got off track, and they brought Charlie Mitchell in from Alabama to put those touches that made it like a Southern tale. It was wonderful.
There's a redemptive sensibility in this movie and in all the best parts that you've really, I think, become renowned for, if you'll permit me to say. Do you, as an actor, are you drawn to characters that have a sense of redemption in them and tales that are redemptive?
It happens to be that, but I don't think about it consciously or intellectually. It's just something
But you're drawn to it nonetheless.
Yeah, well, you know, yeah, interesting characters, absolutely.
I mean,
as long as there's drama and contradictions, and they're not all one thing. They're not all one thing.
Speaking of drama and contradictions, one of my favorite films, I think my wife and I saw it 4 times, was The Apostle.
Yeah, exactly.
And this you wrote, you directed, you starred in.
Right. I financed
you
it.
Financed, you paid the bill.
Exactly.
And therein, I mean, there are a handful of films that I think I could name, and I dare anybody else to name, that have the sense of contradiction and truth to a character, yet reveal that redemption beneath. The Apostle is littered with that, Rob.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, talk to us about the opening scene of The Apostle.
The opening scene came from, I knew a woman whose mother was a Pentecostal preacher, and she was pretty, what she did was she would get premonitions about car wrecks and highway wrecks, and would literally go down and get in the scene and preach the stoppage of blood. That quote from the Old Testament. So that's exactly, that's where I got that whole thing from.
Now listen to me now. There are angels, even in this automobile at this precise moment. He has sent his angels here to watch over you. Now, do you accept him here today?
Yeah.
Thank you,
Hey,
Jesus.
mister.
Thank you, Jesus.
You have to get out of there. You can't be in there. You hear me?
Yeah. Now, when that ambulance gets you on your way, you're going to fly down the highway. Lord's going to have a whole flock of his angels lead you on that highway.
Come on, get out.
He's going to go all the way with you. You've taken the Lord today. He's going to go all the way with you because you both are his champions here today. Praise God.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Don't have to thank me, son. Thank our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. You're in his hands now. Bless you both. Bless you both. Whenever 2 or more gathered in my name, there will I be also.
Mister, I'm sorry about this, but you got to go back to your car. You can't be out here. You're not allowed here.
I understand that.
I guess you think you accomplished something in there, huh?
I know I did.
What?
All I know is that I did not put my head through that window in vain.
Well, how would you know that?
Well, I'm going to tell you. I'd rather die today and go to heaven than live to be 100 and go to hell.
So that whole script was from stories, true stories that happened within that community.
But you traveled around. You were doing documentaries in the South, in the Appalachian Territory. I mean, you almost organically stew this material for a long time.
Absolutely, because I love the black preachers.
Oh, yeah, nothing like them.
Oh, they're one that likes the surrogate father figure to the people of their community. So yeah, I did research all over America, Los Angeles, the South, Texas, many, many times.
One of the things I love about that opening scene, because you see he rushes into a car wreck, he prays over this couple, and you see what appears to be a miracle happening there.
Yeah.
Why did you put that in? Because a lot of people, even now, seeing that film, say, "Oh, this guy's just a phony. He's coasting on his ability to talk."
No, he's not a phony.
But that kind of contradicts
No,
that.
I mean, everything's percentages. And a lot of these television preachers that start out very sincere, they go adrift.
They drift.
But there's a percentages of what's still spiritually valid and what offsets that. The guy's not a phony. I'll tell you this, and I will challenge these people. He's less of a phony than King David, that wrote the Psalms that we worship and adhere to, who sent a man off to die so he could have the wife. My guy didn't do that. He killed a guy out of like an impulse, really. So he's not a phony, really.
No. He struggled, and you see him struggling with that call on his life.
Yeah, exactly.
And at the end, in the prison,
exactly.
he's still preaching to these guys, finding redemption and sharing it with others.
Exactly.
Do you sense that in yourself? That struggle with faith?
Everybody has it. Everybody has it. Yeah, everybody has it. Yeah.
I mean, when I look at the body of your work, the whole corpus, there is a humanity, an understanding, but beneath it is this, maybe preoccupation is too strong a word, but a sense of the eternal, and that even in our mundane lives, the eternal is always here.
My kind of, one of my thrusts is that we all have our journey from the cradle to the grave, and we try to do what we can do without stepping on too many toes. And my only disagreement I may have with some of these religious people, you know, about being saved. You will not go to heaven.
Once saved, always saved.
Yeah. To me, the day of judgment is not now. It's on the other side of the grave. And how can a human preacher say you're either going to go to heaven or you're not going to go to heaven? It's on the other side of the grave, the day of judgment.
It's a work in progress until
Absolutely.
that gavel comes down.
What's on your mind, sir?
It's about time for me to get low.
To get what?
Down to business. Yeah. I need a funeral.
For whom?
Me.
For you. You want to buy a funeral for you?
Am I not talking right?
I'm sorry, sir. Are you sick?
Everybody dies.
All right. I see. Well, sir, the church can help you get your affairs in order and arrange a service for you.
Well, what would you say?
About what?
Me.
Eulogy. Well, I don't know. What do you want me to say?
Say what you say right now to my face.
Well, Mr. Bush, I don't know much about you. I've heard stories, but...
What stories?
Just stories, you know. People talking.
What kind of story? Say one.
Well, sir, my mother used to say that gossip is the devil's radio. What matters is that when you come to the end of your life, that you're ready for the next one. Now, have you made peace with God, sir?
I paid.
Mr. Bush, you can't buy forgiveness. It's free, but you do have to ask for it.
One of the things I loved about Get Low, first of all, tell me about that title, Get Low. What's your read on that?
Well, if you ask the director and everybody involved with this, they'll have a different answer. To me, to get as specific as I can, I think get low is to get down. Get down for Jesus. Get down. You're still above the ground, but you get low and find your sense of humility or whatever to get down to basics, down to spiritual business.
And
That's what I think.
this character you play, Felix Bush, he carries this burden with him.
Yes.
I mean, he exiles himself to the
Yes.
woods. He carries this secret that we don't really learn until
Right.
much later. Well, how did you prepare for this role? I mean, this man's a loner, living alone in the woods. Did you cordon yourself off from friends and family?
We vacation at least once a year, usually in Argentina, where Luciana's people are from northern Argentina. And I remember that long speech and a lot of those things. I just sat facing the South American Andes, the mountains, and just contemplated and worked on it. I think working for a sense of solitude, to find that sense of solitude.
You fill these moments with this unspoken truth that isn't in the script. Nothing funny is happening in the background. It's just there.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for that?
You just do that. You just do that. You think of this, think of the character. And actually, one of the money guys from Germany, when it was all over, a German, hit it on the head that none of us had thought of. He said, this movie is a love story. It's a love story. Going back in time to the woman, everything.
Yeah, it all comes back. It comes full circle.
Absolutely.
And this notion that we have to make amends before we go. We have to confess. We have to somehow deal with the stuff of life and the mistakes we make in life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what he's done for many years, and he finds he has an illness, and before he really goes, he sets up and has his own funeral, a make-believe funeral before he has the real one, where he won't be there.
Yeah.
And this is based on it's based on a real guy, but fictionalized.
Nah, I'm not a smart man or a wise one. I don't know what kind of man I am. I was always restless. Thought I'd see the world, but I didn't go nowhere on purpose because I did something I was ashamed of, something I could never fix. Y'all probably think you know what you do or what you wouldn't, and I wish you good luck with that, I really do. When I told Charlie what I'd done, he told me to confess to God, the law, and to somebody else so as I could get forgiveness. But I didn't want forgiveness, no. I needed to hold on to what I did, to be sick from it every day of my life, so that I never told nobody else. You see, nobody.
Now, you, of course, won an Academy Award for Tender Mercies. Yeah. Another character. You find him flat, drunk, laid out at the beginning of that movie. Right. And he, too, struggles with faith, with redemption, with relationships, and finds his way out of that pit. That journey.
And a help from a good woman.
Right, and a little boy.
Yeah, exactly.
And a song that you wrote, a couple of songs.
Few background songs, not the main ones. Yeah.
Well, but they were.
But you know, he had a support system. When we did Crazy Heart, the part with Jeff Bridges, he didn't have a good support system. My character in the Horton Foote project had a support system that helped him, which was very good.
What was it about Horton Foote's writing and work that so attracted you? I know you were friends for many, many years, and
well, I did a play of his way back about a guy that at the neighborhood playhouse under Sandy Meisner, where I played a drunk, and it came in and it worked. Something emotional really worked for me that they gave me this part. And Horton Foote came one night with his wife and Kim Stanley and Bob Mulligan, who directed eventually, To Kill a Mockingbird.
Right.
And 2 years later, when they were going to cast that movie, Lillian Foote said to Horton, his wife said, "Well, what about that young boy, that young man we saw in your play at the neighborhood playhouse? He'd be very good for Boo Radley."
And that's how you got the role.
Yeah, I want to thank Horton and his wife for that.
What a moment. And,
yes.
and since you brought Sandy Meisner up, let's talk about him for a moment.
Right.
Sandy Meisner was a member of the group theater.
Right.
He was a renowned acting teacher in New York, whom you studied with. Tell me about that technique. Meisner had a very bare bones technique in many ways.
Very bare boned. I mean, he once told me he was easier to please than Lee Strasberg at the studio, where everything was so critical. These guys were pretty critical, so you had to have arrive at a certain sense of relaxation to work under their auspices. But Sandy, what I took from him mostly, I guess, was the way of improvise, just talking and listening, the way we're doing now.
That repetition exercise.
Yeah, that came after I was there, but that's wonderful.
Really?
But this, you know that exercise?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you work with?
You worked with?
You worked with Stanley. Yeah. No,
you worked with?
No, it wasn't there when I was there.
You worked with?
What?
What?
I know that exercise, but I never. When I was there,
you worked with?
It didn't work. Yeah, you work. Yeah.
You worked with?
Yeah, you work with.
You?
You? Me?
You?
What are you looking at?
We?
Yeah, right.
That's the exercise.
Yeah.
So it goes back and forth.
It's a form of improvisation that takes you off of the text.
You throw the text away.
Yeah, right.
Do you use that kind of improvisation?
Sometimes when I direct. When I directed the Gypsy film, I use that, and others. But it's like, not so much. But like somebody says, the more they act as studio, the other method, they come on stage with a big bag of yesterday.
Right.
Sandy was more in the moment.
Yeah, Strasberg made you go into this memory thing of your past, and you'd bring that up.
Right,
I studied with Stella Adler, who was, had her own fixations, but it was character work.
Exactly.
And you do an enormous amount of character work.
It actually has to come back to you. Shifted a certain way, and that's what Sandy says. It's a way of doing it. Rather, people say, "Do you become the character?" Well, that can be a danger. You can be in your head the character, and emotionally nothing's happening. So it's like it has to. I call it from ink to behavior. When you get a part, from ink to behavior, to find that behavior that fulfills what the character calls.
And how do you do that? Do you go when you get a role? When you get a role of a Lonesome Dove, when you're playing Gus McCrae,
my favorite.
That role lands in your lap. What do you do? What's the first thing you do?
You read the script and find out it's such a good script, you're going to let it take you along. And McMurtry still said we should have switched parts, and I totally disagree with him.
I do too.
And what I did was, something led me, strangely, out to West Texas, and I bumped into old Sammy Baugh, the quarterback for the Washington Redskins. He didn't know who I was. We talked for like 2 hours, because the person I was with had played football under him with the Houston Oilers, Larry Elkins. And all those gestures I got in the part were from Sammy Baugh.
One of your neighbors here whom you worked on a project with, and you cultivate these projects, Broken Trail. He, a fellow here who owns an adjoining farm, had written his, or told you a story, and you encouraged him to write the script.
Yes.
He did. It became an AMC movie, beautiful movie. The
AMC won't even pick up our phone anymore.
Well,
we put them on the map.
Well, that's right. You were the first film that AMC did. They should be ringing your phone.
I don't know what their deal is now, but.
But I love that story in that you cultivated this. This story attracted you. It was from the earth. It was from a man who wasn't a professional writer.
No, but he had a great sense of a great ear for dialogue. It was based on the Haythorne family, the Haythorne Land and Cattle Company of Arthur, Nebraska, who actually had a horse drive in the 20s from the west to east. And I think if you really look at it, it may be better directed, better realized in some respects than even Lonesome Dove. It was very well done.
Beautifully acted.
I think the casting was even better.
Well, one of the things I love about that is your neighbor who worked on that screenplay, Broken Trail, he said Bob Duvall collects characters.
Yeah, I've been accused of that in the past. I would like to have a character party someday. But I love to collect characters, I do, because you learn from them in life. That's your guide. That becomes your guide. Like Sammy Baugh was to a point when I did Lonesome Dove. But the script was so good that Bill Whitloff did from the novel that it just led you. It was such a wonderful character on the written page, even Augustus McCrae.
You, I know, are a huge fan of an actor you worked with famously in The Godfather, Marlon Brando.
What time does my daughter leave with the bridegroom?
Well, in a few minutes, right after they cut the cake. Now, your new son-in-law, we give him something important.
Never. Give him a living, but never discuss the family business with him. What else?
Virgil Sollozzo called. Now, we're gonna have to give him a day sometime next week.
We'll discuss him when you come back from California.
When am I going to California?
I want you to go tonight. I want you to talk to this movie big shot and settle his business with Johnny. Now, if there's nothing else, I'd like to go to my daughter's wedding.
What was it about Brando? I only met him once. You had a little more familiarity with him. Tell me about Brando, what it was like working with him and what you learned from him.
Well, what I learned was when I did a movie, it wasn't a very good movie. It was a Horton Foote script, initially called The Chase. I learned from him that when he was having coffee, he'd have coffee, get up, do the scene, action, cut, go back to coffee. And it was all really the same. There was a sameness between when it was off camera and on camera.
A naturalness.
Yeah, something that's, people say, oh, well, he plays himself. Try it, not easy. It's not easy. And I learned that from him.
But he took great risks, and you do too, with these character choices. You look different from film to film, but it's an internal, it's not just
it's got to be,
makeup.
And I think that he finally, not that he sold out, he got tired. He was spoiled at a young age. And I always said to him, you should play Othello on stage. No. He said, it's boring. He didn't like it. And I can understand doing a play 8 times a week. And he became, maybe jaded. He didn't like his children to visit him on the set. He didn't think it's a noble profession, which I think it can be. You benefit people by doing certain parts.
Why do you do this now? You don't have to do this anymore.
No, I like it. I love it. I still like it. People offer me parts. They haven't wiped the drool yet, so why not?
Keep going.
And there's some really good parts coming my way now, if they can get the money for them.
Right. I hear you're working on La Mancha. They want you to play La Mancha.
Yeah, man from Don Quixote, which I understand recently when I was in Texas, that Larry McMurtry based some of his concepts of Lonesome Dove on Don Quixote. Somebody told me that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What else do you have in the hopper?
Well, I'm going to do a movie called 7 Days from Utopia about golf. It's kind of a nice, feel-good, kind of not a Christian movie, but a nice movie, and about golf and about, relationships. And then we're trying to get the Hatfields and McCoys off the ground. Eric Roth has written a brilliant script.
I saw that.
What a script.
I want to return to Get Low before we go. What do you want people to take away from this film?
People always ask me that, and I never know what to say. They take away whatever they get from it, you know, a certain sense of humanity, because I don't know about message movies, but a certain sense of humanity. And like that German soccer player said, it is a love story. And none of us connected with that film had ever thought of that. It is a love story going back in time, you know, that propelled this ill-fated love story that propelled this man to live this hermetic life of his.
It's a beautiful film. It's one of those
It's
films
a lovely
that,
film, it really
It
is.
marks you. You know, you
It's
carry
my
it
wife's
with you.
favorite film since The Apostle.
Final question, what do you want your lasting legacy to be?
Maybe my journey from the cradle to the grave, I hope I did certain positive things without stepping on too many toes.
Well, you've certainly done it here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
May Robert Duvall, who did manage to step on very few toes, I might add, rest in peace. What a gentleman, what an actor. He'll be missed, and we pray for the repose of his soul. That is all the time we have for now. Be sure to catch us next week. Until then, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, thank you for watching. I'm Raymond Arroyo. Bye now.